Hakuho listeners, let's learn sumo. I'm Clayton. Welcome to the podcast. Thanks for joining me. It is day 10 of the January Grand Sumo Tournament, live from the Kokugikan in Tokyo. So, no trivia today, but some interesting news, perhaps rumour level, but a little bit more than rumour, out of Japan. Apparently, reported in the Japanese media in Nippon Sports, apparently there's been some contact between the former Yokozuna, now Isagahama Oyakata, Terunofuji, and Hakuho, formerly the Oyakata of Myagino stable. Now we know that Hakuho resigned from the JSA late last year. His stable name in Myagino, I should say, is actually held by the former Isagahama at the moment. An article in the Nippon Sports News in Japan says that Terunofuji has said that the former Myagino stable boys, Hakuno Fuji, Yoshino Fuji, formerly Kusano, may revert to their original shikonas once they return to Myagino stable at the end of the Azukari period, the custody period. Now, the custody period is the period that the wrestlers have been transferred on suspension of Myagino to the Isagahama stable after the Hokuseiho bullying scandal. Now, obviously, the Myagino Oyakata, Hakuho, went over there with them for a while until he couldn't get a straight answer out of the JSA in terms of when the stable would come out of custody period, and so he resigned. Now, Hakuho explained to the media today, and I quote, "I received a proper phone call from the master, stable master Isagahama, otherwise known as Terunofuji. Being in a position to teach is difficult. He explained that the name changes were done so that we can become one, meaning everyone as one at Isagahama. We also discussed that he will change them back once the custody period is over. Unless it is under a custody arrangement, a new recruit, Asahi Fuji, cannot enter the stable." Now, Asahi Fuji was mentioned as perhaps a new recruit, possibly a relative of the previous Isagahama master Asahi Fuji, whose entry into the stable was contingent on the stable's current status. So where does that leave us? Well, Hakuho has been very respectful, very quiet since he's left the JSA. He hasn't really criticised anyone in the period since he's left. He's been quite gracious and simply promoting his sumo brand in the amateur sumo world around the world and promoting the Hakuho Cup. So perhaps he isn't in as bad standing as we thought. Look, this is pretty wild news that they are even considering that Myagino stable wrestlers might be able to return to their stable. Obviously, Hakuho left the JSA because he couldn't get a straight answer about when it was going to finish. So this is the first indication that that custody period and the suspension of Myagino stable may actually at some point be contemplated to finish, and they may reactivate. So let's look at how that might happen and who might be in the frame to take over Myagino. So now once you resign from the JSA, there is no coming back. So Hakuho will not take it on. Enho, however, currently in Makushita, is a former Hakuho mentee, is currently trying to get back to the Sekitori, the paid ranks, after his neck injury. Now, he slipped down the stocks, he's come back, and he's just shy of Juryo at the moment. He's 5-0 after yesterday. And in order to reach elder stock level, so be eligible to take on a stable, Enho has to make it to Juryo, to Sekitori, once more. And apparently, this desperation and willingness to keep going with his neck injury is part of the issue. Now, as a former student of Hakuho, he may return to Sekitori for one or more basho as a Juryo wrestler, earn his elder rank, and perhaps even be considered for Myagino stable takeover. Now, Hakuho returning as an advisor in the future perhaps might be in the wind. The article is a first indication of anything like that being reported, and look, it's fairly respected sumo media, and it was a quote from Hakuho in the Nippon Sports article. I will re-link it in my X account, so we'll have to watch that space very carefully. We may even see the likes of Kusano and Hakuoho back on the Banzuke sometime in future. Anyway, on to day 10. So our Yokozunas, look, they are in deep trouble with injury. Onosato, well, if you could see his face at the end of tonight's fight, he was in all sorts of pain. He faced Atami Fuji tonight. Big touchy eyes. Atami Fuji put Onosato under pressure. Atami kept pressuring. Onosato saved it. They both got a belt. Atami Fuji then used the belt to turn Onosato over at the bales. They both had a grip. They both landed horizontally, very close together. Onosato hit his shoulder. At the same time, Atami Fuji's foot rolled over inside the dohyo as he was airborne as well. They pretty much hit the ground together. The Gumbai went to Atami Fuji. Now live, I thought Onosato had it, but the replay was a bit too close to call. The slow motion showed it was really close. Mono E, Shimpans had a discussion. Tori Naoshi, a redo, a rematch. Look, I thought this was a fair call, and certainly more fair than the Uramat battle on day 3. It was the second fight. Was Onosato able to put up a fight? The second fight, Atami Fuji drove in to Onosato's right shoulder, straight off the touch eye. Onosato drove forward. He had an inside body grip, but as he got to the bale, he lost any inside grip on Atami Fuji. Atami Fuji escaped that grip, jumped to the left on the bales. Onosato is off balance, and as Atami Fuji was getting into position to push him out, Onosato jumps over the bales. He's over and out, but the landing, when he landed on the other side of the bales, the look on his face was pure, utter pain, and his arm dropped immediately. Back-to-back Kimboshi Gold Star wins for Atami Fuji for that Oshidashi victory over the Yokozuna. Look, the worrying thing is you could see Onosato's shoulder swell as he stood there after the match. I doubt we will see him again this tournament, if even in March. Such is that injury. He was in significant pain at the end of that fight. Onosato 6-4, looking for Kyujo. Atami Fuji 8-2 in the joint lead. Hoshoryu Yokozuna faced Oho. Depending on which Oho turned up was going to determine how this match went. A good touchy eyes. Hoshoryu gets a left inside and overarm right belt. They struggle before Hoshoryu pulls on the belt and pulls Oho down. He puts no pressure whatsoever on that left knee as he's pushing against Oho. Everything was on the right leg. Similar to the way Tomokaze fights, actually. At the end, it was an Owata Dashinage open belt throw for Hoshoryu. When he's accepting those envelopes, he was wincing in pain on his face. 7-3 Hoshoryu. Oho 4-6. Will we see Hoshoryu again? Ayanishiki, he had a real brawl with Takanosho. It was a really good effort for Takanosho. He drove Ayanishiki at the bales, but Ayanishiki just escaped and thrusted and escaped and moved about the ring as Takanosho just chased him all the way around. Ayanishiki gets hold of Takanosho's right arm as he thrusted at one point, which allowed him to get in front and push him out. Ayanishiki, he's just so hard to beat. His footwork and his movement is second to none around the ring. That is what saved him tonight on more than one occasion, and it's why it's so hard to get him into a position to push him out. Kirishima got him and held him and didn't allow him to use that footwork. Ayanishiki is just an incredible wrestler. 8-2, back into the joint lead for him. Poor old Takanosho, he was Makikoshi last night. He's 1-9 tonight. Kodazakura and leader Kirishima faced off. Ozeki versus Sekiwake. Good touchy eye as Kirishima got inside on the left armpit. Kodazakura couldn't get the belt. They thrust at each other around the ring, but Kodazakura ends up with a left outside, right inside belt. Kirishima just didn't get anything on the belt. That was the deciding factor. Kirishima just had nothing to grip, and Kodazakura just drove Kirishima to the bales and over Yorakiri. Disappointing for Kirishima on that one. 8-2, he stays on. Kodazakura goes to 7-3. Takayasu faced off with the very dangerous Yoshino Fuji, Kusano, and just absolutely delivered a Supari masterclass on the young protege. Takayasu just went to town on Yoshino Fuji's face with just repeated Sapari hits until Yoshino Fuji went back to the bales and just tried everything but Sukadashi. He went over, thrust out, quite the victory for Takayasu. I haven't gone back to count how many hits he did, but gee whiz, he hit him hard and a lot. 7-3 Takayasu, still in the fight. Yoshino Fuji, 5-5. Wakamoto Haru, he got a fairly Oshidashi victory, easy Oshidashi victory over Ichi Yamamoto, 4-5 for Ichi. For Wakamoto Haru, I should say. 1-9 Makikoshi last night for Ichi Yamamoto in the Magashira Joy position. Ura, he cannot buy a win as he lost Hataki Komi to Daisho, charging at him. They both went down together, but basically Daisho stayed in. Again, Ura, Makikoshi last night, 1-9 tonight. Daisho, 4-6. Wakataka Kage, he beat Hakano Fuji, Yorakiri, but it looked everything like a Watada Shinage open belt throw. Good touch as Wakataka Kage goes forward, got himself an inside left. Hakano Fuji was defending as they struggled together. Wakataka Kage gave up the inside and went for an outside grip. I thought that was really risky as he kind of ruined Hakano Fuji's balance, pushed him over the bales with the belt, made it work for him, got him to the bales, pushed him over. It looked like an Watada Shinage open belt throw. They ended up calling it a Yorakiri, 5-5 each. Hirodumi easily blasted Toki Hayate back and over, 7-3 for Hirodumi, much improved on his last few efforts. Shishi is still in the hunt for the Yusho, as he got a win over Fujinokawa of all people. It was a pretty good touch of eyes. Fujinokawa forced Shishi to the bales, couldn't finish him off. Shishi pushes Fujinokawa and has his arms awkwardly. Fujinokawa ends up defending back to the bales as Shishi then delivered the most brutal shove to fling Fujinokawa into the crowd. A true Yitanage, 7-3 Fujinokawa. Oshi Tayoshi, 8-2 for Shishi at Magashira 14. Expect him to be fighting up the Banzuke the rest of this week. Now, after Abi's loss yesterday, he redeemed himself against fellow 7-2 fighter Oshumi. Big touch as Abi drove forward with an elbow to the face of Oshumi. Abi then goes thrusting at Oshumi as Oshumi started thrusting back. Abi was back at the bales under pressure. He got a thrust and then pushed Oshumi down to his left at the bales. Quite a good escape. He's pretty good at those Sukiyotoshis at the bales. 8-2 for Abi. He joins the joint lead. 7-3 Oshumi. A couple of Mata games for Asanayama versus Kimbozan. 2 Matas by Kimbozan. It's pretty much Asanayama trying to slow him down. And then Kimbozan on the third go missed the touchy eye completely. Asanayama got a fast outside left belt as he did, but Kimbozan tried, but Asanayama just drove him to the bales and over. It was done. Yorakiri 7-3 Asanayama. He's still in the ball game as well. So that's it for day 10, folks. The race is still on. There's quite a few in that 8-2 position. Remember, you can join me on Instagram or X. These pods are restreamed on YouTube. You can donate to my Kimboshi fund. The Buy Me a Coffee link is in the bio. Helps him pay for some of these subscriptions. Don't forget to join me again. Thanks, folks. Hakuoho, let's learn sumo.